Hey guys, welcome to Living in the Aftermath. This is Lyndsey, your weekly trauma host, and this week is super special because we have two special guests. And first, I will introduce Marissa. She founded Me Too Family Court, and I will let her kind of introduce herself, and then she will introduce our next guest. And I am so excited for today. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet
Yes,
you, Lyndsey. And
yes.
thank you, Kitty, for joining for this very important topic. So, my name's Marissa, and I started the Me Too Family Court movement. In 2019, I started a domestic violence recovery program, clinical research organization, and we were looking at how to end domestic violence. I just didn't understand what all the nuances were involving ending domestic violence. So in my journey of healing, because I also have family violence history, that's why I started Me Too Family Court. That's why I started my company Maslow's Mirror. In my journey of healing, I basically realized that there's a lot of intersectionality going on here. And that's probably why domestic violence is so difficult to end, because it's intersectional violence. So we have family violence, and then we have violence from our romantic relationships, and then we have our systemic violence. And in this journey of finding out all of the different topics that keep domestic violence alive, I realized that there are many things besides just outward violence that takes us to domestic violence. Domestic violence goes into family court. And in that courtroom, I don't really like to call it a courtroom, but it is. In family court, we have what's known as reunification camps. And in that journey of understanding reunification camps and wanting to end reunification camps across the United States and abroad, I met Kitty Mayo. And Kitty is the founder of Georgia Protective Parents, and she's trying to ban reunification camps with House Bill 253.
Can I ask a quick question about that, just so that I make sure that I understand? Because again, what I was telling Marissa, I didn't know that reunification camps were a thing until her and I started talking, because I live in the state of Utah, and they are one of the states that don't allow
Yes.
reunification
Yes.
camps. And so, to my understanding, I'm just going to give it a real life example so that people can understand and make sure I understand it correctly. In my situation, my children did not see my abuser for just under 2 years. And then I asked for therapy reintroduction. I was told no, and they had to go with him that weekend. Had one of my children not gone repeatedly, and he felt that that was me alienating the child against him, he could have petitioned the court to have the
Yes.
court remove the child from my home and give
Yes.
that child therapy to reunify whatever child with
Correct.
that parent. That sickens me to my soul. Another thing that I just want to understand and make sure I understand correctly, when I started researching this, I understand that there are only 6 states in the United States that do not allow this. Is that correct?
I wanna say, let's see, Montana, Tennessee, Texas.
Arkansas,
I don't think
Arkansas, and
Arkansas.
Oklahoma.
I don't know about
Maybe I'm
Cali.
thinking of child
Cali.
marriage.
Yeah, Cali, it's not a lot. I mean, I think
It
about
blew my
7.
mind.
Yeah, 7, and Georgia, we're right there, we're close.
It blew my mind because when you put that into context, right? When you understand what that looks like and what that means, teenagers, children are not dumb. If they're saying no, there's probably a reason, and maybe we should look at that reason rather than just forcefully remove them from the environment that they feel safe. And so understanding what the reality of that is, my brain was like, no, there should only be like 6 states left that allow this, not 6 or 7 that don't. That blows my mind. Sorry. Into you.
No, no, it's okay. I mean, we didn't know about it. Our attorneys hadn't even heard of this, and this is what they do because it's hidden, and it's hidden with a great deal of intention, because that's planned. It's systematic. So a lot of attorneys don't even know about it. They're not even educated on it. So what happened is in 2015, my 2 stepsons came forward that they were being sexually abused by their biological mother. We went through years and years of putting them in trauma therapy and all these counselings and everything, all these types of counseling. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. This is not an arena I have knowledge of. thank goodness. And so we did the very best we could. The court did step in and kept them away from their biological mother for those 7 years. It was during those years that we worked really hard with them on helping get them healed. I think one of my goals was to make sure that they are healed so they don't take it into a marriage. They don't take it into and pass it on to generations, that it ends here. And so that is not, that position, by the way, is not for the weak, because you're breaking
No,
an entire generation, and that
it's
is a lot of work.
hard. Well, and pressure,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
have a 15-year-old son, and a majority of his life, he saw a really unhealthy relationship. And I am lucky enough now to be in a very loving, healthy relationship. But I would be lying if I said that I am not fearful, because he does exhibit some of those unhealthy tendencies sometimes. And I have
Mhm.
to find a way to parent those in a way that doesn't make him feel ashamed of himself or who he is, because he is not who abused me, right? And so I think that that becomes such a complicated dynamic for parents to know how to parent that. And we talked about this a little bit. The boys will be boys. I hear that so many times, and that boys are just aggressive. There's nothing you can do. You just deal with it. And I cannot take that stance. I cannot be the parent that sends that human into the world. And I understand feeling so discouraged and helpless, because it is so hard to know how to do it correctly. But throwing your hands in the air and saying boys will be boys isn't it either.
That's a great excuse to not do anything. It's a
Yeah.
great it's a great excuse to just keep on with that status quo, which happens a lot within churches. It happens a lot within family units. And because God forbid you make any waves to make any change or make a stand. After our boys came forward, they were court ordered to a lot of reunification meetings. And that in itself was traumatizing, because they did not want to see her. They were protesting the entire time. It was very traumatic. But they had to miss one meeting due to like a mandatory school event. And she got herself a really good lawyer, and they took us to court and said they broke the agreement. And that judge literally threw out one of the counselors out of the courtroom, and the other one. And she told them, you're not qualified. They had master's degrees, by the way. And because they were telling the judge, these children do not need to have a relationship with her. They do not need to even see her, let alone anything else. And she threw them out of the courtroom and did a complete custody switch and sent them, a woman that they have not seen in 7 years, and sent them to a reunification camp. And that reunification camp, my husband had to drop them off at the courthouse, and he was instructed not to tell them anything. So they're over here going, "What's going on, Dad?" And he goes, "I can't tell you." They could not tell them. So they thought Dad, their one and protective parent, had abandoned them. And then they had to go into the courtroom. The judge says, these men are going to take you to a hotel tonight, and then tomorrow morning you're getting on a plane and going to California. The men that she was talking about are transport agents that were hired. They work with the reunification camp. It's also the same company that did Britney Spears, her dad hired. Yeah, so pretty
Well,
slimy.
we don't have reunification camps here in California, but a transporter offered to kidnap my daughter here in California.
It's so sick to me how the justice system works and just how the world works, right? That shouldn't be a thing that we do. And I don't
No,
understand why children don't have a say. It blows my
they
mind.
don't.
My
They don't.
most recent episode that I just released, she had 2 children with her abuser, and her daughter was telling all of these people, guardian ad litems and everyone, what was happening. But they told her that because she couldn't put it in a credible timeline, that she wasn't a credible witness, and they didn't take her seriously. And it just disgusts me that that is the world we live in. Like, it honestly makes me sick to my stomach.
Well, so
Yeah,
I know that we're supposed to save this till the end, but like one of the things that the stupidest thing that people say to me is this is the way it's always been done. And when I have been researching and trying to break the system, basically crack the code how did we get here? That's when I have found the American Law Institute from 1955, the Penal Code. And everything after that, I think because it was based on fraud, the penal code system was based off of child abuse. Really, this guy named Dr. Kinsey, Dr. Alfred Kinsey, they adopted his way of thinking that children are sexual from birth, and that people commit these crimes, and that us berating them or putting them in prison is actually worse for the perpetrator. So after that was established, the penal code was adopted, and we go into all of these crimes against children, and it's all connected to the penal code. And what I'm saying is that it's the penal code is based off of fraud, and then people are like, "Oh, it's just that's the way it's always been done." But that's not the way it's always been done. We had something before that, and then this happened, and now we have this. And child sexual abuse material has gone up, child murders have gone up, divorces have gone up, crime has gone up. I mean, it's really bad, and people are not people are not programmable, and trauma happens and it changes you forever. And these systems need to be changed. I don't care that this is the way it's always been done. You know what? Good. That's the way it's always been done. Great. Now we've got something new. Now we know something better. Now we can change it. So no
Hmm.
more of, oh, let's not rock the boat. Let's rock the boat. Let's swim to shore. Let's save these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, what's the
it's
phrase,
bad.
like, "We know better, we do better," you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You do better. Yeah, once we know, when the boys were taken by the transport agents told them, they said, if you behave, you can play video games. But if you give us any issues, because they were 15 and 17 at the time, they were huge. And the transport agents told them, but if you don't cooperate, we have the authority to tase you and to zip tie you. Yes.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Then they took them to the hotel in Atlanta, and each agent, there's 4 agents, they each took a boy to their own room. The boys have no way to communicate with each other or anybody else. They're bawling, they're crying, they don't know when they're gonna see their father or the rest of their family again. They are terrified. They had to sleep on the floor because the agents took the beds. And then the next morning, they get on a plane to California because that's where this particular camp loves to set up shop. That's why California had to pass Peaky's Law, and so they set up shop there. And then for that week, that camp gives them a whole bunch of propaganda films. They have to sit down and watch a bunch of films, and they tell them that what they experienced was never abuse. That was a lie that their father and I put in their heads. So the real bad people were their father and I, and not their mother. Their mother was just misunderstood, that abuse never took place. And they're like, we know what happened to our body. We know. And they're like,
Gaslighting on an extreme level.
yeah. And the oldest one was told that if he did not cooperate, he would be sent to a wilderness camp. Several times that was threatened. So there's a whole entire connection to that. And then after that camp, then they go on vacation with their abuser to kind of make it look all fun. And then from that vacation, then they go and they're forced to completely uproot all of their community, their church, their friends, their school, everything. They uproot everything, and they were forced to go live in a whole other city, a whole other place, and live with her for 90 days. That 90 days, it's a complete custody switch. It's a lie. We did not see the oldest one or were able to even talk with him for 1 full year, and the youngest one for 3 years.
Shut up.
3 years. Yes. And they both
I would not handle that well.
well, I didn't say we did.
No.
And they both came home. Each of them came home 1 minute after midnight on their 18th birthday and left their captivity. That's what they called it. So I don't know. I don't get involved with where they stand with their mother today. I'm very, hands off. I mean, they're adults, but they are still struggling. in that regard because it was very traumatic. The youngest one threw himself into church. He looked for every way possible to be out of the house. He went to the gym a lot, got involved with bands, got involved with church. He did everything he could to not be there. It was, it was very confusing at times for him. He quickly, this is all came out after he came home. He's not able to talk to us then, but once he came home, he goes, "No, I was confused for a while." He goes, "But then everything, the fog lifted." And I was like, "She's horrible. This is awful."
Me Too Family Court is a mother's movement. And Kitty and I, we got into contact with each other. And I normally don't talk to or deal with stepmothers, but Kitty has an incredible story and she's an incredible woman. She's strong. And I am so against reunification camps. They are experimental,
Yeah.
they are harmful, and just need to stop.
Well, and it didn't work.
No,
Like, not that it should have worked, right?
no,
But, like, if we're going on, like, this is always how it's been, they
it's
came
not
home the second
working.
they could. Like, let's do
Yeah,
something different.
Well,
yeah,
this
it's
is not
not.
the way it's always been. But
Yeah.
like I said, the penal code system began, and that's when they started thinking that people could be programmed and rehabilitated. This is where the parole system and the probation system began. And so when these children go into these camps, there's a movie out right now. It's called The Wilderness, and they talk about these techniques that I haven't seen the movie yet, but I know that they do these techniques on the children for mind control, and
To break them down. It's to break them down.
they use these tactics in the Korean War. It's called the Biderman's chart of coercion. Biderman's chart of coercion are all just psychological warfare. I mean, even prisoners couldn't deal with it, and they're trying to do it to children.
Well, fun fact about my story, the last year that I was with my abuser, so I left a couple of times. He was arrested October 31st, 2019, and I was gone for about 6 weeks. That wasn't even the last time. So I went back, right? And as soon as I went back, he held us prisoner, essentially. All the kids were pulled out of school because it was COVID year. And I was working from home. I was the only one working, but he removed my name from the bank account, and I wasn't allowed to sleep that last year. I might cry. I don't even know how to put into words what I felt or didn't feel and how much I didn't trust every decision that I made and how my reality didn't feel real. And if that can happen to an adult, I cannot imagine
Correct.
what would happen to a child, right? Like no human should have to go through that. But like me as an adult, I know, and like it still makes me feel sick to
Mhm.
because my body still remembers
Yeah.
how I felt. It doesn't go away. And I think that's honestly one of the most irritating questions that I get is like, how do you deal with it? Or how does it get better? It doesn't. I get better at dealing with it. Like the stuff that doesn't go away, it hasn't. And I don't know that it will. I mean, it hasn't been like a super long time. His last arrest was January 2nd, 2021. So it hasn't been like a long time, but it has been a long enough time that in my mind, my body should have felt different. And I have to give myself so much grace in knowing that it's not what I should or shouldn't do. It's just what is. And I need to be better at just living in that.
And there's triggers too. There's going to be, 18 years is a long time to be in an environment like that. So I'm glad that you're giving yourself grace. That's a long time to be stuck into, that's a lifetime. And there's going to be things that come up and you just have to take them moment by moment. You have to take a breath or four. I always take 4 breaths. I don't always take them, but when I do take them, I take four. And you just have to keep thinking this is not my reality anymore. And that's when where am I? Name 5 things in the room. Name what I'm smelling, and
Uh-huh.
things like that. Get out of it.
Well, and I'm so grateful for my situation because my abuser did end up calling and asking to give up parental rights of my children that I had with him. And then my now husband was able to adopt them. I have so many issues with the justice system in general because I feel like it is a giant pile of loopholes. And I don't think it should be that way. I learned very, very early on that if I got told no for one thing, that didn't mean it was a no. It meant I had to go about it a different way. And when my children did end up having to go with my abuser, it took me a couple of different times. I think I applied for a protective order and a restraining order. One of them got denied, one of them got approved. But we were told that the fear of abuse is not abuse. And because he had already been convicted of his domestic violence charges, they didn't take those into consideration for our divorce at all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was one thing that so many people in my life didn't understand because they're like, well, why don't they? That's so dumb. And I'm like, well, I know, but it's not my choice.
Mm.
And another dumb question that I talk about all the time, why are you letting him do that? Well, last I checked, I don't let him do anything.
Yeah.
So that was really hard because I think people just don't understand. Like in the justice system, they don't see all of this stuff. They don't even care. If they've given a sentence and all of it is done in their mind, they're rehabilitated and they're healing, right? And that is not true.
Yeah, you can have an ex-husband that has been convicted of SA or domestic violence, DV, and he can still have custody of the children and
Yep.
access to you.
Yeah, it's insane. It should not be that way. Like, it's so crazy. And it's weird because I think people that don't deal with the justice system assume that we're being dramatic or it's a one off, right? And this is just a one and done thing, that this is the anomaly. No, this is just how it is. And it is so hard because once you're in it, it's so hard to get out of that survival mode feeling and heal past it. If you're living in the family court system and trying to keep yourself safe and your children safe and convince people that this person isn't safe, how are you supposed to move past that?
Yeah, I mean, so that's where I get kind of frustrated, and I feel like we're kind of doing like two steps forward, one step back kind of thing a lot. And, Kitty's bill, House Bill 253 to pass Ethan's law is, I feel like we're backtracking. That was one of those loopholes that we're closing. Again, I'm going to go back to American Law Institute 19. I want to go at it from the front and then also at it from the back. So I want to completely repeal the American Law Institute 1955, while I'm also recommending bills like Ethan's Law, HB 253 in Georgia. Ending child marriage is another one of those issues that I'm involved. In California. There's a 0 age minimum. And I do think that the states go after the children at a very young age. Here in California, we had a lot of things come up during COVID and across the United States, quite frankly, like the United States Department of Education, stuff like that. I don't want to get all over the place, but there are a lot of things that you're absolutely right, Lyndsey. There's loopholes. And had we not adopted American Law Institute in 1955, a lot of these loopholes would not be here today that we're trying to fix.
We don't value children. We don't value life. And so the children are the goal.
Yes.
We're just in the way. And so when rocks are thrown and the protective parents are punished, that's because you're in the way. Because it's
Mhm.
a war for the child. I believe it's a spiritual battle. I believe that this is a spiritual issue with earthly consequences. And it is a goal for the child. It is truly, because if you can harm a child, you can harm generations. And so
Yes.
it's pretty deep. It runs very, very deep. And so our organization definitely sees that. We always say that we work as hard spiritually as we do physically, because we're not going to, we can't bring a spoon to a knife fight. And and working with legislation as well. So we're working to get this passed. We're on the first yard line. So we're pretty close.
Yeah, and we need to get other people aware of these camps. They are so dangerous.
Very
Well, I was
dangerous.
gonna ask you, what effects have you seen in your husband's sons since they have returned back? I mean, obviously they're adults, so you don't have as much contact and interaction with them. But what do you feel the major repercussions of that have been? Like, because as we've discussed, trauma doesn't leave you, right? Like all of that stays. And so what things do you feel like they still suffer with?
Because they had a really good base of a good safe home, a very good bond with their father and I. their siblings and their church. Everything was really, really solidified before they left. I think that kept them. Our children do not have this issue, but a majority of the children of the families that I've talked to, the kids suffer from substance abuse. Very common because it's the way they cope.
Suicide.
Yes, it's the way they cope. And ours do not have that issue. So I think on the scale, ours are probably doing significantly well. The one is a freshman in college. He only lives about 45 minutes away, so we see him often. We're at all the games and everything. His other brother just moved back home to finish school online. So we do see child number 5, all the time now.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful for that. I think so many children don't. I think that that's another thing that I see talking to so many women after the struggles that their children face. I am so grateful that my children are where they are today. I attribute that to our open communication. I love and hate it. My 2 older children witnessed the abuse, and so they had to testify in jury trial
Yeah.
with me. And I think because of that, it removed the "we'll talk about it when you're older" or that kind of vibe that happens so often in abuse because it's not a child appropriate topic, right? No one wants to talk about that with their kids. And I think even parents nowadays shelter their kids. I go speak to high schools now because I met my abuser when I was 16. No one in my family liked him, but I had all the reasons why they didn't understand him and all I knew better, right? And so I
Yeah.
say now, I don't know who I would have listened to, but maybe I would have listened to someone that lived it. And so when I go and I speak to high schools, I just tell my story. I don't tell it scary. I just talk about how we met and when we were dating and how exciting it was and how it progressed and how it led into all of those things. And I have met so many teenagers that are just not educated, but their parents don't allow them to stay into my presentation because they don't want to scare them with traumatic information. And I get it, but I'm not telling it in a way that I feel is not age appropriate for a high school, but I feel like parents so often get scared and try and shelter their kids, which does so much more damage. And so I think communication is one thing that I attribute to my children being successful. And it sounds like you have really good communication with your
Yeah,
kids.
they're very
And I
good. Yeah,
think
they're
that
good at
that's
that.
key.
Yeah, I do
So I don't,
too. We don't,
that
we
is
talk,
heavy.
it's very heavy. I explained it to him because I had a multitude of children. I gave each child a color when they were growing up. And one was yellow, one had a yellow cup and yellow towel, and the other one had a red cup and a red towel. So because I got sick and tired of saying, whose towel is on the floor? Whose cup is that? I could say, hey, Ethan, you need to come and get
That's
your towel because I knew it was
genius.
Ethan's.
I'm
Well,
doing
you
that.
know,
You just created a whole new thing in my
survival.
mind.
A mom of many. And so we come up with these things. And so when first came home, I said, Owen, he goes, there's just a part of me that doesn't ever want to talk about this again. And I'm like, I get that. I get that. And I said, but that's where it stays. It's going to continue to harm all these other children. He understands. And he's like, I don't ever want a child to do this. And that's what drives him. But I told him, I said, because you didn't pick up your towel when you were yet little, I had to. So what one generation doesn't pick up, the next generation has to pick it up. And so
Yes.
when I talked about that example, I said, we need to pick this up so that other children in our state do not have to.
Yeah, I noticed that, like, when I first started Me Too Family Court, that the people, and I know that this is so silly to probably point out, but I noticed that the people who were less traumatized could do more work. And I know that's just like common sense, right? But I talk about Tina Swithin of One Mom's Battle. Her children were only in the system for a very short time compared to a lot of the other mothers that she's helping. So I think that we do need to triage ourselves in our advocacy work, that we can only do so much. And people like Kitty and Ethan who are making great changes, I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, this is an amazing thing that you're doing. And I am so grateful that I learned about it because I have a loud mouth and I will tell a lot of people about it. It just shouldn't be a thing. Like, I mean, it comes
I know.
down to just morality. No one's kid if your kid doesn't want to go with you, self-reflect. Like, let's take a hot second to ask ourselves why your kid doesn't want to go with you and have the problem be our own, not someone else's.
Well, this
Mhm.
goes all the way up to the top, to the White House. So we came across a guy, I don't know if we want to mention his name, but he was involved in the most dangerous cult in American history called Synanon, Synanon. And he went to the White House, and he's part of the father's rights movement, and he's part of this parental alienation theory that has turned into the troubled teen industry and propagated the reunification camps. So if we want to make changes, we have to do it at the very top and have like a trickle down effect.
I think it also too, and I think this might be a little controversial, but I get a little angry at the women or the people, I guess, in general, that do the things that created the camps in the first place, right? Like, these only existed because someone did that first and it was real, right? And I don't think that that happens often. I think we do need to listen to the children because we don't listen to the children at all right now. And I think that would alleviate so many problems. But I think too, accountability is something that our society lacks. And I think that it needs to come back to like everyone else too, right? Like,
Mhm.
yes, let's listen to our children first and foremost, but also like self accountability, I think needs to be something that more adults reflect on. Because I mean, again, I can't say that it's not real, right? I'm sure someone has alienated a child against a parent, and that's heartbreaking as well. But if you don't ask the child, how do you know what the situation is?
Well,
No.
the alienation industry is based off of gaslighting. I mean, alienating behaviors are real. That
Mhm.
is a legit thing. Alienating is a real word. But this theory called parental alienation, that's where the real harm well, it does, the real harm comes from. And that's why I think we also don't listen to children as well. Plus our legal system. I mean, one of the first things that I was always taught is don't ever own it, don't apologize. You get into a car accident, don't say you're sorry because then you're going to say that it was your fault.
Then you're
We're
admitting
taught
guilt.
Right, we're taught these things. We don't ever admit guilt, right? I mean, plus we also see it all the time in like these interviews that the police have. They never ever admit that they're guilty, even when they've murdered somebody. And like we know, like the Anna Walsh case, we know that that guy totally chopped her up in Massachusetts. I don't know if you're following that story. Anna Walsh, she was working in DC. Her husband, Brian Walsh, they were separated, and he ended up chopping her up and scattering her all over the place. Well, allegedly, because he says that he's not doing it. He didn't do it, right? But we're in that court case right now. And all I'm saying is that like they never admit that they've done
No,
it. So when
no.
people are surprised, it's shocking to me. But then I also remember what I was like at that age, 19 years old, watching the OJ trial and thinking that he could possibly be innocent. Scott Peterson, everybody has uh, this inability to take ownership. It's what we
Well, and
teach.
there's also a level of sociopathy and narcissism that go hand in hand with all these abusers. And that's a connecting thread. And they're not going to admit abuse, that their hobby is to deflect. That's one of their favorite pastimes. And so to deflect so that they can keep shining. And most of them don't want the children. They want their reputation. And, it does come from the top. It comes from the top in the US. It comes from the top in each state. It comes from the top in other countries. I mean, when a fish rots, it rots from the head. It doesn't rot from the tail. So if we're going to care about our tail, the tail end of our society, which are children and the people that are impoverished, then we need to take care of the things that are at the head. And so it's a systematic form of abuse and power.
I
Love
agree.
all of Kitty's things that she says. She has all of these really cool sayings, like that fishtail thing right then. That was just so cool. If
Genius.
you get a chance, go to Kitty's Georgia Protective Parents Instagram page, follow her. She is
Thank you.
amazing. She has some of the coolest things that she says.
I'm a former children's pastor. I think that's where it comes from, I guess. I don't know. But that's also what keeps me going in this fight, is because I see children as who they are. They are souls. They are souls. And when we disregard that, why should we care? So it's their souls. And so that is why I am just have so much grit about this bill and other bills that I have on the back burner. And they're all connected to children because we need to honor them. We need to shepherd what we have been given. We've been
Yes.
given an opportunity and a blessing, and we're just throwing it away as a society.
We need
I
all
agree.
hands on deck. There is nothing more important than our children. And any of your viewers are in Georgia, or even if they're not, contact the senators. Let them know that you want to ban reunification camps. Let them know that we need to pass HB 253, Ethan's Law. We need everybody in on this. We need moms and dads and aunties, cousins, grandma, grandpa,
Everybody.
everybody needs to
Yes.
get on board. These camps are dangerous.
Very dangerous.
100%.
And, we fight. The people have asked me, they're like, well, this makes complete sense. Who's in opposition to this? Great question. The only ones that are opposing it are the ones that make money off the backs of our children. It's the compromised attorneys, the compromised guardian ad litems. It's the compromised judges. And some of the judges aren't bad or corrupt. They're just
Don't
ignorant on the
know.
matter. And so we need a great deal of education on this topic, on coercive control, and where that's the mothership of all of this. And this is not, and I don't like seeing, like the women say that this is a mother's issue, or this is can't stand the father's rights movement in the sense that it is very dangerous, but the mothers too. These camps, women are running them. There's one that's run, and was New York, female ran it. There's one female took over the other one that was in one our children went to in California. That's in Canada, by the way. That's another thing. The one our children went to is in Canada. So the U.S. courts are taking advice from another country.
That makes
Got
no
it.
sense.
No, no.
No
And
sense.
Just
so
another loophole.
it's another one.
Again.
It's another one. So women are absolutely a part of this system as well. This is not, it's just, when you think about cults, women are we're the ones that give life. We're the ones that give life to these things. And so we can give life to these issues, or we can put it into it. And so I say we ban, and all of us as a protective parents band together and put it into this.
I think that it's so hard because so many people don't get invested until it affects them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And that is heartbreaking. And so that's why I think it's so important that we just kind of put it into a real life context and be like, no, this is what that looks like. It's not a good thing because you can spin anything to sound great. That doesn't mean that it is. And so I think that having people understand so that they do get fired up and they do fight for something like that before it affects them, right?
Well, I think it's sad when, I always was like, when there's a missing child, an Amber Alert, okay. We can sit back and go, well, it's not my kid. We're fine. I taught our children at a very young age, whenever something popped up like that, or when an ambulance passed by, as a family, we stopped what we were doing and we prayed. We didn't have any control. We couldn't really help, but I did raise children to have an awareness of others, that it wasn't just because they didn't know the person that was involved doesn't mean that we don't care. And I think a society is just very selfish in general, and just not caring. And so we need them to care. As a matter of fact, the senators, we struggled getting them to listen because they didn't think this was affecting very many children.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, isn't one enough?
We
Yeah.
just can't have these camps available as an option for any parent. We were talking about this just yesterday, the 80-20. So when you look at perpetrators, it's typically 80% men and 20% women. And this
About
is
right.
human trafficking. When you are spending money, when you are profiting off of moving children, that is trafficking. That is the definition of trafficking. So when you think of the 80-20 rule, when it comes to domestic abusers or just abusers in general, criminals, 20% are usually women, and then 80% is usually men. And so they work together. You know, Kitty and I have talked about this, where the demons, they know each other. They see each other. They have like an eye or a magic look or a handshake, and they know each other and they work together, and then they create these systems. And we've got reunification camps, we've got child marriage, we've got so many issues going on with, trying to make the world a better place. So, yeah, it's 80-20. When we think about human trafficking, there's always a woman that is helping somewhere. So we can't think that it is a gender issue. Absolutely. It's just that we know that more often than not, it is the male perpetrators.
Yes, there's help somewhere along the line, whether it be maybe the perpetrator's mother, family unit that's involved. Narcissistic moms are just awesome.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's females involved 100% in the systematic abuse. Yes, our judge was a female.
Was infiltrated by women from MAGA, Me Too Family Court. They tried to steal the GPTs that I work on, and they tried to take my websites and my trademark and all that.
Jeez
Women.
Louise. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, can we not all just be good humans? And if we're not good humans, like, let's just accept that, right? I don't think if someone doesn't want to rehabilitate, you aren't going to force them to rehabilitate. It's just not going to happen. And so I think that living in that delusion that there's something that we can do to rehabilitate these people or change it, that's just not a reality, I don't think.
People are who they are at their core. These narcissistic systems are creating narcissistic individuals who are making narcissistic decisions that are really harming us. So we just need to pass Ethan's law. That's all for Georgia. And then,
That's it.
yeah, that's it. And then we need to work on the other states too.
Well, and I will make sure to like reach out to you guys and link all of that in the description of this episode so that we have it like accessible. I feel like so often if you can make it easy for people, they will do it. So I will do all I can to make it as easy as possible for people to support this.
Thank you so much for having us on and giving us a platform to share this important message.
Of course. Thank you
Thank
guys for
you.
taking time out of your day to educate me. Like I said, I don't know what I don't know. And so I think it's so important that we educate ourselves and know what world we're living in. So
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
thank
for
you
having us.
guys. Of course.